On June 6, 1996, a Dallas suburb turned into a nightmare. Two young boys were killed, and their mother barely survived. At first, it looked like a stranger had broken into the home. But step by step, investigators uncovered a darker truth. The real horror was inside the house. Darren and Darlie Routier seemed to have it all. A young, happy couple with 3 children, 6-year-old Devin, 5-year-old Damon, and baby Drake. Darren was a successful businessman. His company handled computer repairs and held several government contracts. In 1995 alone, he brought in nearly $300,000. Darlie stayed home, focused entirely on raising the kids. To everyone around them, they looked like the perfect family living the American dream. On the night of the attack, Darren Routier was upstairs sleeping with baby Drake. Downstairs in the family room, the 2 older boys had fallen asleep watching TV. Their mother, Darlie, was on the couch next to them. At about 2:30 in the morning, she later said, an intruder broke into the house. He attacked the children, then woke Darlie by holding a knife to her throat. After a brief struggle, the man fled, and Darlie called 911.
911, what is your emergency? Ma'am? They just stabbed me and my children. What? They just stabbed me and my children. Who did?
By the time paramedics arrived, one boy was already gone and the other was barely alive but died on the way to the hospital. Darlie herself was rushed into surgery. A cut on her neck came within 2 centimeters of her carotid artery. She also had a stab wound on her arm. After treating her injuries, doctors noticed something unusual. She wasn't wearing any underwear. When asked if she thought she had been assaulted, Darlie said she remembered feeling pressure when she woke up. But tests later showed no evidence of sexual assault. After doctors treated her, police questioned Darlie. She described the intruder as a white man about 6 feet tall, wearing a black shirt, jeans, and a baseball cap. She also claimed he dropped the knife on the kitchen floor as he ran off. During the search, officers noticed the window screen in the garage had been cut, and just 2 houses down, in a nearby alley, they found a bloody sock. But detectives quickly pointed out something strange. Robbery didn't seem to be the motive. Between the kitchen and the living room where the attack happened lay 13 rings and a pair of gold women's watches. Nothing was taken. Whoever came into the Routier home didn't steal valuables, but stole the 2 things that mattered most: their children. For investigators, the most important clue was blood. They believed the pattern of stains and splatters could reveal what really happened that night. Darlie insisted she only woke up when the knife was at her throat, and that the attacker escaped through the garage after a brief struggle. Darren Routier said that on the night of the tragedy, he was upstairs sleeping with baby Drake. He claimed he woke up to the sound of breaking glass and rushed downstairs. Detectives were already in the living room waiting to hear from him, but Darren's first words caught everyone off guard. Instead of asking about his boys, he looked at his wife and said, "Did you see Darlie? Isn't she beautiful? She's got a great figure." Then he added, "I can understand why someone would come here. Darlie's a pretty young blonde." To investigators, those comments sounded deeply out of place, especially from a man who had just lost 2 children. Maybe he didn't yet know if Darlie would survive. But even then, the reaction was unsettling. In the kitchen, detectives noticed something strange. One slot in the family's knife block was empty. The murder weapon, a 10-inch knife with a white handle, had come straight from the Routier's own kitchen. Blood drops on the floor were photographed and collected for DNA testing. The size and shape of the stains could confirm or contradict Darlie's story. Her nightshirt also became a crucial piece of evidence. A bloody sock was found in an alley 2 houses away. Tests showed the blood belonged to Devin and Damon. But tracking dogs couldn't follow any scent beyond that point. Investigators asked, why would the killer leave the knife behind but carry off a sock? And why drop it out in the open instead of hiding it? More inconsistencies appeared. Darlie said she had chased the intruder through the kitchen and that he knocked over a wine glass and a vacuum cleaner. But the glass shards were lying on top of bloodstains, not underneath. And Darlie had no cuts on her feet. Under the overturned vacuum, there were also blood splatters, and the wheel left a bloody print. Even stranger, a blood stain from Darlie herself was found on the vacuum handle. The pattern showed drops falling at a near 90-degree angle, as if she had been leaning over it. That didn't fit her version of simply running past. For investigators, the conclusion was clear. Either Darlie was badly mistaken about what happened in the kitchen, or she knew far more than she was saying. To make sense of the blood evidence, investigators turned to Tom Bevel, a leading expert and co-author of the textbook on bloodstain pattern analysis. His job was to read the story told by the stains. Bevel found that the blood drops in the kitchen were perfectly round. That meant they came from someone standing still or moving very slowly. But Darlie claimed she had been bleeding and running through the kitchen, chasing an intruder. If that were true, the stains would have been elongated with tail showing direction. Darlie also told police the attacker had dropped the knife on the kitchen floor. But Bevel found no trace of that. No marks, no outline of a knife, no blood pattern showing it had fallen. With the amount of blood on the blade, there should have been a clear imprint. Instead, the floor told a different story. Next, prosecutors brought in audio expert Barry Dickey to review Darlie's 911 call. After filtering out background noise, he discovered her voice came from at least 3 different rooms. She was moving quickly through the house, never staying in one place for long. That didn't match her story of remaining near her children. When officers first questioned Darlie, she held a wet towel to her neck wound. Investigators wondered, had it also been used to wipe away blood before police arrived? To find out, they used luminol, a chemical that glows when it contacts even trace amounts of blood. With the lights off, the kitchen lit up. Clear footprints appeared in front of the sink, and they belonged to Darlie. Blood was also found on the cabinet under the sink, and it looked like someone had tried to clean it away. The pattern showed someone had stood bleeding at the sink for a significant amount of time without moving. DNA confirmed the blood was Darlie's. For prosecutors, the implication was clear. This was where she cut her own throat and arm. If an intruder had really been there, he left without a single trace. On the living room carpet, investigators discovered something unusual. A blood imprint in the exact shape of the murder weapon. A heavy line of blood at the tip of the blade told them something critical. The only way blood flows like that is if the knife is in the hand of someone who's bleeding. It runs down the arm, across the hand, and finally onto the blade. That kind of pattern meant serious bleeding. And Darlie had a deep cut on her right hand. DNA testing confirmed the blood on the knife belonged to Damon and to Darlie. There was nothing from any unknown intruder. Darlie told police she had picked up the knife in the kitchen and set it on the counter, but she never explained why it left an imprint on the living room carpet. There were no fingerprints, no signs of a stranger entering or leaving. As one investigator put it, it was as if Peter Pan came down the chimney, committed the murders, and vanished. To police, the conclusion was clear. No outsider was in the Routier home that night. Just 8 days after the murders, the Routier family gathered at the cemetery. It was supposed to be Devon's 7th birthday, but instead of quiet mourning, the scene looked more like a celebration. Family and friends surrounded the grave, and a local TV crew filmed everything. Darlie told the cameras, "If you knew Devon and Damon, you'd know they're in heaven having the biggest birthday party we could ever imagine. They wouldn't want us to be sad down here. Even though our hearts are broken, I know they'd want us to be happy." Watching on television, District Attorney Greg Davis was stunned. Only a week had passed since the boys' deaths, and yet a birthday celebration was taking place at their grave. To him, it seemed unsettling, and more than a little curious. At the Dallas County Crime Lab, forensic expert Charles Lynch discovered what would become one of the most critical pieces of evidence. On the Routier's kitchen bread knife, he found a sliver of fiberglass and traces of rubber dust. The cut screen in the garage window was made of PVC strands with fiberglass cores. Testing showed the fragment from the knife matched perfectly. No other source in the house could account for it. That meant the kitchen knife had been used to cut the screen. FBI specialist Alan Brantley was convinced there was no intruder. In his words, burglars don't break into a home, grab a knife, then go back outside just to slash a screen. The only reason to do that is to stage a crime scene. More evidence supported this. On the back of Darlie's nightshirt were blood spatters belonging to her sons. Some of the stains pointed upward, consistent with the motion of a knife being pulled back after a strike. The forensic evidence told a story very different from the one Darlie had given police. Prosecutors argued that what happened that night was not random, but planned. Darlie had convinced the boys to sleep with her in the living room. Sometime after 2 in the morning, she took a bread knife from the kitchen and cut the garage screen to stage a break-in. The knife was later put back and forensic tests showed fiberglass on the blade matching the screen. According to the state, the largest knife in the house was used. Blood patterns on Darlie's nightshirt indicated the weapon had been in her hands. Prosecutors also suggested she may have removed her underwear intentionally to mislead investigators and imply another version of events. At the kitchen sink, investigators believed Darlie injured herself to appear as a victim. But something unexpected happened. One of the boys survived for a short time, which, prosecutors said, explained additional traces left at the scene. The bloody knife imprint on the carpet was linked to her own wound, with blood dripping from the blade. And analysis of the 911 call showed Darlie moving quickly between rooms, not staying in one place as she had claimed. In the end, prosecutors said her attempt at staging the crime scene had failed. Investigators admitted it was difficult to fully explain what happened, but in their view, the children stood in the way of the life Darlie wanted for herself. Darlie Routier was arrested and charged with the murders of her 2 sons. Her husband, Darlie, denied any involvement and no charges were ever filed against him. Author Patricia Springer, in her book Flesh and Blood, described a possible motive. She wrote that money wasn't the reason. Instead, the case was tied to emotional and psychological strain, multiple pregnancies, the overwhelming responsibility of motherhood, and a lack of support from her husband. Over time, it became clear that Darren offered little help with the children. While the Routier presented themselves as the perfect family to the outside world, behind closed doors, the reality was very different. Darlie Routier was found guilty of capital murder and sentenced to death. To this day, she remains on death row in Texas, awaiting her execution. Texas is a conservative state, where punishment for crimes like this is especially severe. As District Attorney Greg Davis explained, the case showed that society cannot ignore the killing of children. In his words, Darlie's sentence reflected the seriousness of her actions and the measure of justice the system was able to deliver. Friends, what do you think about this case? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you want to see more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The link is in the description. See you in the next episode.